Welcome to the Game Informer Show, gaming's #1 podcast. I said it, nobody can take it back. This is the Game Informer Show where we inform you about games. I'm your host, Ben Reeves, joined today by Joe Juba.
Hello.
Hello. Alex Stadnick.
Hello, friends.
And Jeff Cork.
Hey, every time you say that, it sounds like you're saying it for the first time, where we inform you about games, like you're just trying it on.
Somebody should inform me about how to start a podcast, I guess.
I like it. It sounds spontaneous and fun.
Hey, that's our name.
Yeah.
Got to roll with it. Cool. Well, we got a good show this week. You'll edit this out, right, Alex? It'll be perfectly smooth. Okay, we got a good show. We're going to talk about some Assassin's Creed. We're going to talk about Sackboy's Big Night Out, or whatever it's called. Sackboy's Big Adventure.
Inform you about games.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's some NBA game, some Kingdom Hearts game that I think Kim is going to come on later and talk about. I don't know. There's a lot of games. We actually can't fit them all into this episode because I wanted Dan Tack to come on and talk about Call of Duty or Demon's Souls, but he has to play those games for review. So hopefully we'll get to talk to him more about that next week, along with Destiny, the new Destiny expansion. So stay tuned a whole week and we'll get to those games. But in the meantime, we have some other awesome games we can talk about. Joe, start kicking off our playlist. You've been playing a lot of Assassin's Creed, right?
Oh man, I've been playing so much Assassin's Creed. Yes. Even once the review went live on Monday, I've continued playing it.
Yeah, it's awesome. I know I've been playing it as well and totally digging it. Just, do you have a sense for like your hour count or like how many hours you had to put into this thing? Because Odyssey was just massive, and I think I put like 100 hours into it. So
yeah, so it is. I guess I don't know for sure. I think when I ended up finally just getting the platinum on Odyssey and putting it aside, I think I had 150 hours in it or something after all the DLC and stuff. For Valhalla, it took me just like Odyssey, it took me about 70 hours to finish like the core story. But also like Odyssey, there's this whole sprawling world full of different collectibles and side tasks and secret things to find. It's like, oh, well, what if I collect all those things, then I get this suit of armor and this cool thing happens as I go and find those things. So it's not all just like, it doesn't feel necessarily like a meaningless kind of collection where you're just getting stuff to get it. There is a little of that, but a lot of it they do. I think the team at UB Montreal does just a good job of crafting content in the world that you want to get. Like a lot of the collectibles are gear that you're getting, and like the gear makes you gives you cool perks. It makes you look different. You customize the look of your character with it. So you get that stuff. You get materials that you use to upgrade your weapons. One of my favorite it's not really even a collectible, but the things that you find on the map are those they're called mysteries, but they're essentially just like side quests or they're like little mini stories. Because when I say side quest, I think back to like AC Odyssey, where there's just a whole map full of these things that are like, hey, go kill those bandits, go raid that fort. Will you run into those hills? Now come back from those hills.
Yeah,
and
some games treat side quests as if they're like main story quests. They're just like not connected to the main narrative, right? There's basically some of the same stuff, but these are like much smaller interactions that you have with just people wandering out in the world. And usually, at least the ones I've played so far, don't require that you go very far. Usually it's all kind of self-contained in that little spot, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, it is. And like, it is absolutely my favorite, like single addition to the Assassin's Creed formula. Cause like, I think my biggest complaint about AC Odyssey was the way that it kept you grinding through the same kind of content, whether you're doing the main story, the side quests, any of that stuff, you're generally doing the same kind of stuff. It didn't really feel authored, and all of these little missions, they don't overwhelm you. They're not there to make you feel like, oh wow, look at all this content, all this great stuff I can or have to do. Sometimes they're just like, they're little stories. The first one you might encounter in the game is just like a woman sitting by a lake with some dude nearby who's like, she's basically asking suitors to go like dive and try and retrieve a ring for them from the bottom of this like really icy lake. And when you do it, it doesn't take you more than a minute. I mean, you talk to her, you find out what's going on, you dive down, you get it, the ring, you bring it back to her. But it's you're not infiltrating any bandit camps. You're not killing 10 wolves for it or anything. It's just a little crafted story moment that you can enjoy and move on.
And a lot of them are like super bizarre, or like some of them, you definitely, some of them are funny, but some of them are like not even quite funny, but you can tell they're going for just some like, it's just super weird oddball people you meet, which I kind of actually like that tone. Like there were these brothers I met and they wanted me to save some stuff from their house, but they basically set their house on fire to do it. And you're just like, what?
Yeah, yeah, they were trying to make it look like raiders had burned their house down, but they forgot to
Uh,
take everything valuable about their like from their house before it burnt down, so you had to go and help them with that. There's one, and I don't want to spoil too many of these, but like one of my very favorite ones is there's an old, like you run into these two kids talking about, I think it's their grandpa or something. There's some old guy nearby who they're like, his wallop is undefeatable. He has the biggest wallop. You're like, what's going on? They're like, oh, this old guy is just unbeatable in battle. And you talk to him and he's like, don't challenge me. Don't, I'm just gonna wallop you and you're gonna get hurt. And like, but you engage him in battle, and sure enough, the first time you fight, unless you're really good at like parrying, he is just gonna like annihilate you. It's just a super old guy with a really powerful punch who's just like laments the power of his punch because it keeps drawing all of these challengers to him, and he has to keep beating people up all the time because he is so strong.
is that like a
Anyway,
reference to One Punch Man or something?
it could be. I mean, it doesn't sound. It's not exactly like that, but
Okay.
Sounds like
anyway,
in like
fair enough.
westerns where he's like the fastest gun in the West, and all the kids come to like try to prove against him.
it feels very much like that. Yeah. So anyway, it has a lot of those little stories in it, but then also just that core Assassin's Creed formula. I don't. Am I going on too long here? Do you guys want to keep hearing about this?
No, I mean, well, we could talk about the main story too. Like you play as Ivor, who's this Viking warrior. You invade England. I mean, all that stuff's preview stuff. But like the main quest, you're building up your settlement. Do you feel like the main quest is pretty rewarding?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the ways I describe this that it hits with me is like it's sort of a if you it's like a meeting point between something like Dragon Age Inquisition, Skyrim, and Assassin's Creed Odyssey, right? Because like
I'm excited about two of
for
those things.
so for the Dragon Age Inquisition portion, it has a similar sort of structure where you have a home base that you customize, talk to your allies, take on quests and stuff from the centralized area, but then you're going out and gaining alliances from different places. And each one of those like alliances that you're gaining is basically a self-contained little storyline. So you get the sort of catharsis of little mini payoffs all along the way, rather than feeling like it's one big story that's just really stretched out. And then Skyrim, it's got that element of like a big world to explore, lots of little cool secrets to discover, plus that whole like Nordic atmosphere. But then the game also on the third front builds off just the foundation of Assassin's Creed Odyssey in a lot of really smart ways, from the combat to the exploration to all of that stuff. To me, it feels like I mean, I talk about this in my review, which you can read on the site, but it sounds a little, or it feels a little to me like for every Assassin's Creed game, they have a little bit of trouble striking the right balance or finding the right way to incorporate all of the different pillars that this series has over the years, right? Whether it's like, hey, we're going to have high seas adventures, but then we're also going to have a modern day storyline, but then we're also going to have big open world exploration and assassinations. And for me, this game really like finds the right things to bring in and fold into the experience in the right amounts to make that balance just feel right on. So, I mean, for me, as a longtime fan of this series, Valhalla is my favorite entry now.
Yeah, and before that, what would you have said was your favorite?
Before that, I'd say for me it was Syndicate.
That's a
Uh,
good choice.
I think part of that has to do with like as someone who's been playing the series for a long time, I have a lot of sort of old school allegiance to it. I really like the way that a game like Syndicate, for instance, takes that those crafted assassination scenarios where you go in there and you feel like you're in a situation that is designed to be interesting for stealth gameplay. And this one goes a little Valhalla goes a little bit back in that direction. not as all in as Syndicate was by any stretch, but also not as sort of procedural as Origins and Odyssey felt with it. So
Sure. One thing I've noticed in my time with the game is that I really liked Odyssey, and one of the things I really liked about it was the combat was so zany. You were basically a superhero in that game, right? You were
yeah,
teleporting all over the place. You were raining arrows down and fire down from the sky, right? And it feels like in Valhalla, combat's a little more grounded. I mean, you're still very capable, but it seems like they're going for a little bit more realistic tone. Does that seem to be the case?
yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that for Valhalla, one of the things that they clearly wanted to incorporate is that sense of like Viking community, that sense of like going on a raid with your brothers in arms, which there's a little bit of that in the sort of like area conflicts in Odyssey, but I think so much of the combat in Valhalla is geared towards happening with groups, whether it's geared towards happening with groups where it's like it's not always just one-on-one battles. It's Eivor versus two or three people surrounding them, or Eivor fighting someone, but then three Viking buddies around them also fighting people, and you're sort of like clearing out a battlefield and stuff. So it does take down the godlike element of it a little bit, but you still feel just like totally powerful and capable on the battlefield. And the game does a really smart job of like divvying up the way that you approach different abilities. So instead of everything just being like it was in Odyssey, everything just being something you map to one of the face buttons, that's still an option. You still find these abilities that you use actively in battle. But then there's also the skill tree that just sort of passively imparts all of these different, whether it's like +2 to stealth damage, or things like that's where you buy the ability that reduces fall damage. That's where you buy the ability that lets you chain two assassinations together. That's where you buy the ability to um, do a one-hit kill on any enemy, regardless of how strong they are.
Yeah,
So it's like all of this stuff is happening in the skill tree. There's still lots of great things to do there, but also fun things to collect for your more active battle options too.
sure. We've been doing a couple of guides up on the site. Like I just did one on the settlement and how you could like build out your settlement, which
Oh
is
God, we didn't even talk about that. Yeah.
yeah, no, we haven't even talked about that. We're running out of time. But then the reason I brought that up is because you wrote one on skills for the
Right.
game and just like the best skills to get. So I recommend checking that out on the site. I mean, do you want to talk about the settlement really quick?
Well, hey man, you wrote the guide. Why don't you talk about the stuff?
Well, it's maybe one of my favorite features in the game is you have this settlement that you're building out, and a lot of AC games have a hub world that you return to and slowly expands. But I think this is the most involved it's ever been, where you literally people are coming to your town that you found, and they'll at first they like set up a tent, but then you can use resources that you gain by going on raids to then build up more permanent housing for them, and then that unlocks additional perks and like bonuses for you. So the one I keep using is like you build a house for this guy, and then he sells you maps, or you can build a house for a person or a merchant and then sell and trade goods and stuff like that. Where there's a lot of things you can build that give you food bonuses, and then you can throw a feast for your raiders, and then that gives you additional kind of temporary perks to your character as well as your raiding party. So it's a really cool system. I like what they did with that.
Yeah, yeah, and especially Jeff Cork. There's even a little feature in there that you're gonna like. It's called the Joms Viking, which you like unlock a barracks, or you build a barracks
Mhm.
that basically lets you create a lieutenant Viking raider who will come on these raids with you. You actually see the character like in the world, but then also other players, if like people on your can recruit that character and put them on their crew. So like when you play the game, when you build a barracks and you create your Joms Viking, I can go into the menu and be like, oh, here's my friend's Jeff Cork's Joms Viking. I'm gonna bring them to be part of my raiding party on my longship. And then when I do that, you get a little bit of silver for it.
Let's talk about pawn action, kind of.
Yeah, it's
Little
vaguely
like it.
pawn like.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I,
Well,
I
you're a
have
big Cork.
real
You're a
quick.
big Assassin's Creed guy. Like,
I'm
what's your
looking
take on
forward
that?
to this. This is all I want to play right now. So I'm very excited about this. Like Joe, I kept checking in, pestering him while he was playing it, and then also proofing his review and stuff. And it was just like the entire time, it was a sensation of like, these are all the things that I've loved about the Assassin's Creed games and their individual components mashed up in a configuration that I'm really into, which is a clinical way of saying that sounds fun as hell.
Yeah.
I have one quick question for you guys. Like, people who have spent time with the series, like with AC games and just in games in general, where you have a choice, like Ivor is the same whether or not you choose to play like male or female Ivor, right?
Mhm.
I'm wondering, Eivor. I pronounce it Ivor, first of all. That's kind of my thing. So Eivor, so Eivor, male or female? What do you think has a better voice actor? Because that was like a driving force of picking Cassandra in Odyssey, for instance, just because the performance was so much better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I stuck mostly with the female one. I think unlike Odyssey, where I had a clear like I think Cassandra's was clearly the better performance of the two.
Yeah.
I shouldn't even say performance. I think the guy who did Alexios probably like I can't say he did a bad performance, but it just made the character seem a little I don't like more like a cartoon character to me. It sounded a little over the top.
Yeah.
Which maybe was intentional, but it was a little distracting for me.
Malaka.
I think for this one, Malaka. For Valhalla, from the time I spent with the male one, I think they're both good options.
That's great to hear. Yeah.
Different but good.
Yeah, so that's Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Reviews on the site. What'd you give it, Joe?
I give it a 9.25 out of 10.
That's great. Yeah,
That's
it's
a
a
high
good
score.
game. It's definitely one of the biggest games of the year, just size content wise, which is why we had to talk about it for so long. But yeah, if you haven't played it and you're a big Assassin's Creed fan, be excited. Just like Jeff Cork is. Jeff Cork, you haven't played Assassin's Creed yet, but what have you been playing?
I've been playing another big adventure, namely Sackboy, a big adventure.
Ooh.
Yeah,
That's what it's called, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. It is difficult to reconcile a game with so much fun and imagination with that title. It really does feel as though it was set up to fail just based on that name. Just a big adventure. Come on, guys. Maybe they put it all in the game. We'll say that to their credit.
Makes me think of Pee-wee.
Pee-wee, a big adventure.
Yeah.
That was a great
setting
game.
it up that way is very stilted and strange. But fortunately, the game is a lot of fun. It's a PlayStation 5 / PlayStation 4 game, so it's one of that. We're still in that awkward cross-generational transitional period. I spent most of the time playing through it on PlayStation 5, though I did threw caution and data cap to the wind and downloaded it also on PlayStation 4 to evaluate that. And I will say, like, talking to the designer beforehand, I got the spiel about, it's definitely designed to be a good experience in both versions, whatever you're playing for. I will say, like, even on a PlayStation 4 Pro, it doesn't like fall apart, but it really does feel like any second now things are really gonna get ugly. It didn't when I was playing. I mean, like, but it isn't quite as snappy as it is on PlayStation 5, which isn't like a super satisfying explanation, I think, but everything just feels like it has a little room to breathe when you're playing on PlayStation 5 from just the menus and just the way you interact with everything. Again, it's completely fine and playable on PlayStation 4, but I think you're also missing out on a lot of stuff if you don't check it out on PlayStation 5. So pulling way back out real quick, it's basically like a 3D platformer starring Sackboy, which you may know from Little Big Planet series. He's that little guy with the zipper. He's
But those
brown.
are normally
Very cute.
Those are normally, just to be clear, those are 2D platformers. Little Big Planet is traditionally. So this opens it up to a new dimension.
Right. And it also, like, you don't have to worry. We'll say that's a charitable way of putting it. You don't have to worry about all that build your own cool stuff. They said, no, we got this. We'll take the driver's seat. But ultimately, it's like a 1 to 4 player cooperative 3D platformer, right? So you can insert your analog here if it's like one of the Lego games, for instance, or if it's one of like the Skylanders games, or if you want to go to like Mario 3D World or something like that. It's basically like that.
Well, where does it, like, on the spectrum of those? Because when you mentioned Lego, I don't tend to think of those as like platforming. I just think of them as sort of mindless. I mean, they're fun, but like they're pretty easy. Whereas Mario, I think of like tight platforming. That's what I go to this for.
Yeah.
Is this kind of more of a platformer or more of just kind of an
This is more of a platformer, absolutely. So basically, you do have a story, which I won't get into because it's just too much lore to parse. But there's a bad guy's name is Vex, and he does bad stuff, and you got to run
I'm
around
already
all
confused,
these
Joe.
different worlds and get to the end of the levels that the world has conveniently split into. But it's super fun, and like it is like a pretty. I would say like the main campaign is moderately difficult, and then also if you really want to go for extra challenges, there's like these knitted night challenges that are essentially kind of like a platforming abstraction, whereas like the main game definitely leans on Little Big Planet's aesthetic of things are kind of made out of felt and buttons and props that you find in the real world. These are kind of like a Mario Sunshine inspired, like floating out into the void of space and just like the barest visual representation of platforming. So those are a lot harder, and there you're rewarded for like how quickly you complete them. So like if you're looking for more of a challenge, those are absolutely worthwhile. They're like pretty diabolical. And just the main game itself though is super clever. It's really like conversations before launch. Again, I talked to the designer and he was saying like we really want every level to have a big surprise in it in some way. And that's something you also hear a lot. No one's going to say we want every level to feel familiar and trite. Of course they're going to say they want surprises, but like I was really surprised at how like I didn't know what was going to happen from level to level because almost all the stages will introduce something weird, kind of like a one-off mechanic, or maybe there's a mechanic that builds over the course of like 4 or 5 implementations where like the final time it's doing something you never anticipated. Like there's this a boomerang kind of attack that you can get in some levels, and then the way you use it initially is just as a straight offensive weapon, and then over time it gets a little more sophisticated and interesting, which is a lot of fun. And what I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, it has like a phenomenal soundtrack of just like that series has always had like a really distinctive like indie rock vibe ever since the first time we saw the first game revealed, right? So that's always been part of its lineage, and this leans on some of the same musicians you may know from Little Big Planet, but also it has some like super recognizable songs. I don't want to spoil anything, but they're also implemented in the game in ways that I was like, it's like one of them started like the first time I encountered a song that I was like really familiar with. It was like, is it gonna do the thing that I hope it's gonna do? And it's like, oh, it absolutely is. It's kind of like the Rayman games that came out a few years ago, where like the action is syncopated to the music. So like there's like like enemies are dancing along to the music, and platforms are like moving in time with it. So like to the point where like when the thing's gonna disappear because it's so tightly coordinated with the beat. It's so much fun, and like there's so many times where you're just like, this is just absolutely pure joy. I'm having so much fun, and then there's times when you play cooperatively, which I did enough of it. We'll say that. Where at the end of it, I felt like I needed to have a post game briefing with my kids, saying like, I'm not mad at you. Just to be clear,
I am
but
disappointed though.
But you are in
don't-
trouble.
I did make it clear. I thought I don't like to be thrown, and you kept throwing me.
So I'm
Because
very disappointed in you.
the screen does like pull back a little bit to accommodate multiple players, but it is like ultimately you are kind of stuck close to each other, and like when enemies come and you're hitting things, it's easy to like, especially with customization of the characters, to lose who's the good guy, who's the bad guy maybe. So it's like you slap your friend around, or your child slaps you off a platform maybe, or picks you up and throws you in a way you weren't expecting. So those elements are kind of like sloppy, and they're fun, but at the same time when you're nearing the end of a game where it's like progression is gated, where it's like you need this many orbs to unlock the next world, and you're like, okay guys, we need to like find this one thing. You've done it again. Now I'm gonna have to replay this level because the little window is closed, and so
That was going to be my next question, because like you said 1 to 4 players, and I was
Mhm.
like, well, okay, did they design this for 1 player or 4 players? Because sometimes you can't
Yeah.
really do both, and so it's like, sounds like maybe it's a better experience as 1.
Yeah, I personally had more fun playing with one. They have like some special challenges that are designed specifically for multiplayer, which those are really fun, and you should seek those out. Like because they are designed with like one player's doing this thing like that moves the platform that the other person can use. Those kinds of elements aren't woven into the single player campaign that can be played cooperatively, just because they don't want you to miss out on anything by, requiring multiplayers. So the ones that are designed for multiplayer, absolutely, those are super great. I would say, like, as a whole, I think a lot of platformers, in my opinion, I just don't have as much fun when there's other people around because I feel like they get in the way. Like, I'm trying to jump over here. Oh, the person has, through no fault of their own, moved over to where I'm going to be. So now I bounced on their head, which makes the timing different from what I was, just that kind of stuff. It's chaotic and it might be fun, but yeah. And also, like, if you're expecting, like, I'm going to play this with my kid who's 5 because Sackboy is cute. Good luck. Sackboys, you could turn off the things like shared lives, so like it doesn't matter when they fall off the platform and into the fire for the umpteenth time. But if you want to just keep it like the stock experience, yeah, it's maddening.
They're still doing lives, huh? That feels kind of dated.
Yeah, again, like you said, you could turn that off too,
Sure,
if you want. And then also it's got a thing where
and
you
I
can
will.
like, yeah, I recommend turning off because I don't think it ultimately adds anything. It's just kind of like the number of times you're allowed to fail before you have to hit restart, which you will, and then you'll do better next time. Whatever.
So that's Sackboy's Big Adventure. What'd you give it?
Well, I'm still in the process of writing the review, so that one I don't have a score for it. But
Come on, give
it's
us
a lot of
little
fun.
Exclusive. Yep, you're digging it though. You're having fun.
Nope.
Yeah,
right.
no.
It's out. It's out this week though.
Yeah, I believe it's out today by the time this podcast comes out. So
great. You been playing anything else, Cork?
Yeah, I played a little bit of the remaster of the Amazing Spider-Man, or should I say Marvel's Amazing Spider-Man? Is that what we call it?
That's what they would like you to say.
The 2018 one.
Exactly. That's a game that I kind of, excuse me, I fell off on. Couldn't get into it for whatever reason. And then it made it worse because I'm like, I really should go back there because everyone loves it so much and I want to feel those feelings everyone's had. But then it was like, well, they're going to have this remastered version, which put it that odd no man's land where it's like, well, if there's a better version of it, I may as well just check that out. So I played that for a little bit. It looks real nice.
This is your first time playing Spider-Man, basically?
I played it. I think I may have played it for like 5 or 6 hours.
Okay.
Before. Yeah, it looks really nice. And my kids were immediately, they have both, like, I think it's one of the few games that both of them in it have independently beaten. They saw the new model for Peter Parker and they were like, oh, that's so much better. Just instantly were like, I was like, what do you mean? They were like, he kind of looked like he was made out of a computer or something. He didn't look good. So I'm like, all right. So there you go.
I agree with him. It was weird to see that hate online when that new model was announced. You're like, what are you guys talking about? This looks clearly better.
These are the people that got mad about puddles.
I was going to say, can't wait for the comments this week.
Yeah, it was just different.
Yeah.
It doesn't look bad at all. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm not trying to insult the actors or like say the guy who did the last model was an uglier person or anything. I prefer this new one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, Ben, take a stance. Take a bold stance.
Yeah.
I love World Peace. That's all I'm going to say.
Whoa.
Yeah. Do you think you'll stick with Spider-Man this time, Cork?
I have to. I have to beat the campaign at least. I'm not going to do like I heard pigeon missions are boring or whatever, but I'll just do the bare minimum to get through so I can check out the Miles Morales stuff. Yes.
One thing I'll say is like Spider-Man, both Spider-Man and Miles Morales, they're open world games, but they're open world games that are like pretty doable if you have like a limited amount of time, which I appreciate.
Definitely.
So they're still like meaty games and like I feel satisfied with the amount of time I've spent with them, but it's like the opposite Assassin's Creed, even though I'm enjoying Assassin's Creed and I'm enjoying all the side stuff, it's like there's just so much of it where I feel like I need to sit down and prepare myself. Like, all right, this is going to be a feast. Whereas Spider-Man, it's like, this is an enjoyable meal. I feel satisfied, but not overly full, if this analogy is working.
It's brunch.
So anyway, yeah, it's a brunch.
It's a brunch game.
Although I've stuffed myself quite a bit during brunch, so I don't know if that.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do at brunch, man.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah, you're supposed to feel like an idiot
to not eat them.
Yeah,
exactly.
All right.
Feel lighter with breakfast.
Oh gosh, brunches are so fun. Like, because you can have pancakes, waffles, and like a bunch of savory stuff. Where if you go and order just breakfast, like you're kind of limited to one. It's hard to get something that mixes everything together.
They won't let you get a side of bacon.
You can't get a mimosa.
No, they refuse.
Breakfast. Yeah, it needs to be brunch.
Yeah. And like
anyway,
most places, biscuits and gravy. They don't. You can't just get like a huge plate of those. They'll give you like a biscuit with some gravy on it. But no, brunch buffets. Those are the places where you're just like, I'm gonna eat 10 biscuits with gravy
and a bowl of gravy soup,
and then gonna throw up later.
Well, I guess
But
this
it'll be
analogy
worth
Give
didn't
me a
work
coffee
anymore.
cup
Yeah.
full of gravy. That's what I want.
You can tell that we've been doing quarantine because we're all just salivating over remembering brunch.
Yeah.
'Cause no one
Gosh.
makes who makes brunch at home?
No one. Well, at least
No.
not like you should, where it's just an excessive amount of food.
Do you think people will be mad if I pull this part out of the podcast and make it its own video? Do you think they'd like that?
People getting mad?
No, doesn't happen,
No.
Jeff.
It'd be ridiculous.
Yeah.
On the merits of brunch, the game info show.
Hey, speaking of making people mad, you played Demon Souls, Alex?
That I did, sir. That I did.
Hey, Quark, are you trying to be the host here?
No.
What's going on here? I did indeed. Mr. Juba was with me for that. And so whilst I am not Dan Tack, which I made very apparent on the stream yesterday, I think I can offer a newcomer's perspective because I do think I think this remaster or remake offers a second chance for people to play it that missed it the first time around. So we got through about the first 2 hours of the game. I fought the first boss, and we played it on replay as well. So I at least for that section, I had a frame of reference. And from what I can tell, it is very, very much the polished, great version of this. If that's what you're coming to it for. I wasn't getting caught on walls. I didn't feel like I was being cheated because of old controls or old software. You know what I mean? It felt like a buttery smooth combat experience, which I guess I don't remember that first one being.
But would you say it's still like even though it's been improved in that sense, like did Blue Point totally like revamp the combat experience, or does it still feel faithful to that original?
I think it feels like the best version of the original.
Great.
It still felt like a Dark Souls, like a From game. From a combat perspective, you're blocking and rolling to try to get behind someone so you can, do that one hit kill and not get hit, And I find it really satisfying, especially with the DualSense controller. And I think I was at least getting used to games like Astro's Playroom that really went over the top in a good way with it, where you felt your steps and like the breeze on your hands, you know what I mean? And that kind of stuff. Whereas I think they took, at least from my first couple hours of play with it, they took a little bit more of a subtle stance with the controller, but I still find it to be pretty interactive and engaging. I wasn't feeling the cobblestone beneath my feet, but I was, when you hit something with your sword or, you parry at the right time, you feel it and it feels good. And I think with a game like that, the challenge was to not overload people with that rumble and the haptics and stuff like that. And so far, I think they did a really good job. I still want to try magic out. I still want to try like using the bow and whatnot, but it feels right in a next gen way. And like I said, I am very much a newcomer relatively to this series, but it feels like a really great combat experience. And then once you pair that with the gorgeousness of that world, like it is incredible. We had heard before that Demon Souls was going to be like a showcase type of game, and I played it on both modes because they have a performance mode which is 60 frames a second and 4K, and then a cinematic mode which emphasizes more of the visuals. Liana said there's no ray tracing in the game, but both look stunning. Both have really, the draw distances are awesome. The creature design is amazing, and it just feels like it's rare for me that From games really stick, but I'm excited to see if this is the one that actually like gets me there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's an interesting idea. Like, so you didn't play Bloodborne at all?
No,
that's the one everybody says, like, start with that if you want to see what the series is about.
I've been saving it for a time that I can actually sink my teeth into it, because like for me, From games are really like I put like 25 hours or so into Dark Souls 3. I put like 10 to 15 in Sekiro, and I enjoy my time with them, but I find it's such an exercise in muscle memory where I need to stick with it if I'm gonna like beat it. That's why I fell off of something like Cuphead. I never beat Cuphead, but I love that game because I come back to those games a couple weeks later. I'm hours in, so like the tutorial stuff is gone, and I'm like, well, I don't remember how to play this as well. Like I can't continue to bang my head against this boss. So I I know it's going to be difficult because we have Call of Duty coming out and we have Cyberpunk eventually, you know what I mean, and Assassin's Creed. But I really want to give this its proper due because I think it's doing all the right things for me as a newcomer. I'm excited to hear what Tax says about it as a series vet, and I'm sure a lot of people listening feel the same way. But I think if you're a newcomer and this looks appealing to you, if you have a PS5 and you're excited about it, I would give it a try because I think it is a great showcase of visually what the PS5 can do, and technically too. Like when I died, I was right back in the action. Like you barely sat there
That's
at
great.
all. So
Yeah.
I would recommend it.
Cool. Well, like you said, Tack will be on next week to talk all about it. So we'll get the laydown from the reviewer then. But anything else you've been playing, Alex?
I mean, I've had the luxury of and the I won't say the curse, but like I've played everything because we've been doing a lot of videos for everything. So Assassin's Creed, you guys touched on everything. Like I'm really enjoying that. Recently, I beat Miles Morales, and that is just that's another one that's just a great showcase of the PlayStation. And I really, really enjoyed it. Cork, I'm excited that you're giving it another shot because I think Miles as a character is just kind of a breath of hope and determination that I think people could use, and just New York in that world is so pretty, and the Venom combat feels so good in the new Spider-Man game. So I would encourage people to give that a try as well. I know, shocking, me recommend a Spider-Man game. Like people are like, I don't know, I'm on the fence about this, but here we are.
Great. Well, thanks for that, Alex. I think it's probably about time to move on. Wait, hold on. I'm getting a call from Kimberly Wallace is out on the field. She says she has a report for us, so let's bring her in real quick. All right, Kim, thanks for calling in. You're currently on location in a helicopter hovering over the Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory score, I believe. I can only assume it's a giant train wreck. What are you seeing?
Oh man, I am not seeing anything train wreck. I'm seeing delight. I'm hearing beautiful melodies from Kingdom Hearts. That's all I've been doing for the last day and a half. It's been a beautiful thing, Ben Reeves. I know you feel as strongly as I do about this series, so
Oh yeah, you see eye to
Everyone
eye.
does.
Just in the other
Yeah.
direction.
So what is this? This is a musical game. It's like
a rhythm game.
Okay.
Yes. So it's not part of Square's Theater Rhythm series, which got a little people confused because they did that with Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, their other flagship. But with this, I'll say it like this: it's different than Theater Rhythm because it's all in 3D, and they tried to do more of the Kingdom Hearts like action combat on the screen. So I mean, you're still tapping notes and holding notes to execute attacks, but there's also like a jump button which takes you like, you're gonna avoid attacks with that, and also get airborne enemies, and it kind of adds a new layer to the rhythm kind of frenzy on it. But this game in particular goes from all the I can't believe how much content is crammed into this game. It has over 140 songs. I finished the world tour mode, which is like the main like little story mode, which we'll get to in a second, and that took me I think like 8.5 hours. And then I unlocked a bunch of songs in that. I'm like, oh, I got a bunch of these. I'm probably done. Then I went into like just playing regular tracks of them, unlocks even more songs. And then there's like co-op that you can play with other people that will unlock songs. And then on top of that, there is online verses. And then you can also like synthesize some of the items that you get from playing levels to unlock even more songs. So the songs, they never stop coming. And
this
it
sounds
goes,
like a disaster.
Wait,
no, it's
you're
a
saying
beautiful
you're enjoying
thing.
it.
But you're
It's a beautiful-
unlocking a bunch of Kingdom Hearts songs, though, right?
Okay.
The best of the
That was
best.
gonna say the Kingdom Hearts music is very good.
That's what I'm saying. Like I was actually, working on my review, and like Kingdom Hearts has such great music, and Yoko Shimomura does not get like enough cred. So I'm so happy that all this the composer of it is on display here. And I mean, they really did go all out. There's maybe like a few tracks that I was like, oh, I wonder if that's going to show up if I haven't just unlocked it yet. But I didn't see many omissions, honestly. I was pleasantly surprised. And I always had appreciation for the Kingdom Hearts music, but going through this experience, because the story mode lets you relive, so it retells the story. So if you're confused about the story, you can go through the story mode and it talks about all the big twists and turns. It's nothing huge, because I want to set expectations. Like, you will go to each area has like 2 or 3 worlds. You play through like 2 songs to each world, and then it opens up. You have to get a certain amount of stars between that by fulfilling certain objectives. Like, maybe it wants you to get a certain score, or you have to hit like all the hold notes and not miss any. Like, it gets harder and harder as it goes on. But you'll then unlock scenes where Kyrie, she's narrating this, and you'll find out the reason for her narration. It doesn't set it up at all until the very, very, very end. So I want to say you get her narrating like what has happened through each game. So if you're like someone who wants to dive into the series, I actually suggest doing this because it's a quick and an easy way to kind of get up on it. But I will say this, I got to the end and I was like, God, this this world tour mode is like really, I thought there was going to be more to it. Like I didn't expect like a big cutscene story thing. Then I got to the end, and I just want to say this for fans, and I'm going to leave it like this. It reminds me of what Dream Drop Distance did at the end of that, where it sets a lot up for and I got re-excited all over again.
Wow.
And I was very mad after Remind, as you guys know. So I'm not going to say anything else about it, but it was a big payoff for me, and I'm getting harder to please these days with that. So
I was gonna say, is it enough that, because I hated the end of Kingdom Hearts 3. Like, is that enough to like bring me back in as someone who is nowhere near a Reeves or Juba in my feelings towards the
it
series?
gives you a lot more context to certain things that you didn't have before, and then sets up additional stuff. There's still some, like, how do I put this? Some stuff where you're like, oh, really? They're doing that? That's whatever. But it's not as bad as I thought it was.
That's
with
how I
Remind.
reacted to the end of 3.
But that's how I reacted to the end of Remind. I was like so pissed off. I'm like, if they're doing this, I don't know. I'm just so mad. I don't want this to end. Then I saw this and I was like, all right, I'm happy. Like, this is good payoff here. So I will like to see what other people think in the coming days. But
wake up. They're still talking about Kingdom Hearts.
Jesus, fine. As a rhythm, here's what I'll say: as a rhythm game, it's fun. It's got its flaws. Like, sometimes the UI, there's too much going on the screen, and I don't want to use the Theater Rhythm comparison, but I always thought Theater Rhythm did well of like clearing that lane out. This, you're like battling enemies in real time, so your notes are going as you're in 3 lanes. And sometimes it's hard to see everything on the screen and have like a clear view, especially like to prepare ahead of time for incoming notes as well. So,
did you put a score on this thing yet?
I do have a score. It's just a solid 8.
That's a good score.
It is.
And to clarify something too, even though this isn't a full-on, this isn't a sequel that like continues the story in a big meaningful way, it still does have like story elements or a narrative element that fans of Kingdom Hearts are going to want to see.
Yes, that very end. As I said, you realize that you are rehearing like this, but I think it's a good thing too, because even for me, like I said, going through it, I didn't even realize how much like certain songs mattered to me, until I was sitting there like replaying them, and it just transports you to that moment in time. Like, God, I can't listen to like Lazy Days without the summer that Roxas, right, had, without feeling that. Or you just remember like all the crazy Lazy Afternoons, all the crazy stuff I did to get those Hercules tournaments at the Olympus Coliseum, like just having, because it does also have all Disney tracks too. So if you want to go through Let It Go ahead, go do that. That's for you. But then like Simple and Clean is also on there and stuff.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff isn't in the story world tour mode. Like, you do need to go into the regular track list. But as I said, I finished the game, and there's still so much I feel like I haven't unlocked. And then like online just brings in a new competitive element, because you have like in versus like tricks. So you can like you get two of them as you're fighting, like on and off, and like one you can put fake enemies in front of someone, and so they have to avoid like trying to hit them and stuff. Just like fun things like that to mess with people and try to get your score higher than theirs. And then you get ranked and you can go up the leaderboards. It is a little bit of an easier rhythm game, I will say. Proud mode. If you are an advanced player, you'll probably play proud mode and not really die on the first try, which is kind of troubling. You can also mix though in the options and put more inputs in if you want, but you have to like manually go on and do that other than
Okay.
that. But there's like the basic difficulty mode. So I felt like they made this very approachable for a lot. They could considered like we'd have a lot of people who are just coming into the rhythm genre for this. So I'm guessing that the hard part probably comes from playing online if you really crave that like intense tense challenge.
Yeah, that sounds great. So check out your review if you want to read more. Hopefully it'll be up online by the time you listen to this. But Kim, before you go, I heard that you have also been hang timing. Is
Yeah,
that right?
you
That's
know it.
what they say in the basketball court.
Hell yeah. I've been playing a lot of NBA 2K, and all I have to say, and I hate to put this as but not having to go through loads in a game like that always had these heavy loading screens is like amazing. I mean, their their online big like connected mode before was called the neighborhood, and you used to have to wait forever for the neighborhood. Well, they made like for this version the city, so that's where you play like street games against other people and build up your rep and all that. It's huge. Like they even have like different districts you can join and support on it, but it loads instantly and every game loads up in like 2 seconds. I'm like, what is this world? I can never go back to another NBA
That's awesome.
2K
Is
game.
that
And Mhm.
is that a thing? Are professional basketball players out playing basketball on street courts? Does that ever happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. There,
You
there's
don't
a,
go
Yeah.
to the park. You
They
never
have
went
fun
to the
doing that.
park and played ball. Like it's like park ball, kind of like that.
Oh,
They
me
put
and
up-
my old elementary friend Michael Jordan used to play all the time, but I don't know whatever happened to him.
stuck the
Uh,
landing.
but I will say this is the smoothest the gameplay has ever been. Like with tech issues with anything, they ironed out a lot of stuff. Just smoother gameplay overall. I love the new dribbling. Like it, you just feel like you have more control because you can now control like the pace of the ball. And mind me if I might get too nerdy here, and the control of the speed for like your size up moves. So that like opens the door for hesitations, escapes, setbacks, hard goes, crosses. I know you guys all know what I'm talking about right now.
Yes, of course. Go
Okay.
on.
Yeah.
I do.
Kingdom Hearts stuff.
Yeah.
Cork,
But what
wake
else
up. They're
is
not talking
really
about Kingdom Hearts anymore.
I went to go play the career mode again and I was like, oh, this is going to be the same. I'll just like see how it plays a little bit. And then I noticed like there's a big choice that changes compared to if you played like the current gen one. So the current gen one has it where you can pick to join a college team. And in here, you can go to the G League, which is like the developmental league of the NBA for people who are kind of on the fringe. And they test like a lot of rules there before it goes into play in the NBA. So I'm doing that path right now, and boy, are they mean to you in that one. I will say that. But my favorite edition, and this is really near and dear to my heart, is that you can now create your own My Player in the WNBA, and you have a little story mode that kind of goes through that. It's not as advanced as like the one that they did for the My Career, but at least like you get to pick after every game, like kind of how you want to leverage your celebrity, I'll put it. Like you can build a park for kids, you can do like do a speak at like a basketball camp for girls and stuff, and it's really cool because you get to kind of see how your being like a visible woman is helping other people and girls kind of get excited about basketball. And I want to say, just as somebody who I've told you guys before, I think I was a baller growing up. I
Yeah,
played
you still are in my
basketball.
book.
I played basketball competitively for a long time, and growing up, I remember it was always just like me hoping that I'm just gonna play with the guys, and it's whatever, it's no big deal. And then I remember the WNBA when it was becoming a possibility. I was like, 11 or 12, I think, and they were and the U.S. basketball team had just because that's how I would see women play. It was the only time, and I would just be like Cheryl Swoops, like Lisa Leslie, like all that. I was like, oh my god, this is so amazing. And I remember I did a little report in school about like you got to pick like 3 career options, and one was the WNBA. Obviously, I didn't make that dream happen. I just didn't grow past 5'5". But
What were your other two?
I think I had something like doctor on there, which I don't even know why, because God, that's I can't remember what the third one was though. Probably
Kingdom Hearts
something
expert.
dumb. Yeah.
You did that one.
Kingdom Hearts wasn't
You
even
made it.
around
Video
then.
game
This is
doctor.
how far back we're going. But it's so surreal to be able to like create a player in a game that looks like me for once, because I've been playing all the NBA 2K games, making pretty men and playing as them to get so it has just been like, I don't know, it's just so surreal to be able to do that. And I hope they expand the mode a little bit more. But even how you play a WNBA game, which is a little more technical than like an NBA game where it's more flash and dunks, like women don't dunk the way that men do. So it's a little different a style of play, and seeing that even represented on the court is really cool. So that was a thing I'm glad that they added, kind of another new thing just for this generation swap, because they built this from the ground up, with the new consoles in mind. So like the tech is just amazing, and it really is a big tech highlight so far, from what I'm
That
seeing.
and sweat are the new things,
Lots
right?
of sweat.
Well, the
Yes,
sweat
lots
in
of
this
sweaters.
sweat.
game looks
Turns
really
out
good.
when you play basketball, you sweat. Also, the crowds. They do a lot with that, and having just like the atmosphere of a live game. Really, it just feels, those arenas feel more alive. There's more people in them. Obviously, they're able to do that this generation. Have them doing, people mopping the floor, the cheerleaders, everything. Like it's really realistic this time around.
People in the crowd looking at their phones most of the time.
I know, right?
Yeah.
These screens, right?
It's always someone in the front row, and it's like, why do you have front row tickets if you're looking at your god phone?
Drives you
Sorry, I had to get
insane.
that out. Yeah,
Damn
it
it,
drives
Drake.
me nuts. But I'm liking it so far. I think it's I don't have my review up quite yet. I'm still testing some online stuff, but as far as like technical hiccups, I haven't experienced, like I always had tons to deal with NBA. You'd have like weird clipping, like the player movements weren't always that natural, and like all that stuff has not been an issue for me that I've seen so far. So yeah, I'm loving it.
And to be clear about something too, there is an NBA 2K21 out there for PS4 and Xbox One.
Yes.
That is not the version we're talking about, and that is not what people should be excited about.
Yes,
right?
they carried some stuff over from that, but it's very, like I said, like the story of Junior trying to be in his dad's shadow, who's Jesse Williams, and Jesse Williams is a dad, like of a college kid. Just, I know the aging does work out, but it just it doesn't look, he has too young of a face for me to have it believable. But that story's all there, but they did add new choices, as I was saying before, like with the G League, that kind of changes the trajectory and path of it. So I thought that was cool that they did that. And like the WNBA stuff isn't in that. The city, their big city that you get to have like rivals and rival districts, and that's not in there. So yeah, this is definitely the superior version.
Yeah, that's a good distinction, because I believe with the last gen version you gave it like a 7. That review's on the
Yes.
site if you want to read that, but the new one sounds like it's going to score better.
I would say I'm 100% on that right now.
Great. Well, watch out for that review as well. Cool. Anything else you want to share, Kim, before you got to like fly out of here?
Oh yeah, I gotta fly to my next basketball game, man. It's
All right.
It's hard times over here.
Good luck with that. Thanks, Kim.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Game Informer Show. It's time for community emails. So be excited. I got Alex, Joe, and Corker still here. Kim unfortunately had to go. She was too into that music, apparently. I don't know. I wasn't really listening to what she was saying. But this is the segment of the show where we read your emails. This is emails that you send to podcast@gameinformer.com. You can ask us questions. You can have us play a game. You can send in characters for us to rank, whatever. Sky's the limit. I can't control you when you're emailing us. So think about that for a minute. Podcast at GameInformer.com. Send in fun emails like this one from Rich from Florida. They say, hey, gang, I just wanted to say nice work on Extra Life this weekend. You guys put on one hell of a show. And while I wasn't able to watch the whole thing, the parts I saw were great. It was nice to see Dan Reichert return for replay, and Jackbox is always a highlight. Are there any other moments I should be sure to go back and watch from your Twitch archives now that it's done? Keep it sleazy. Thanks, Rich. Really appreciate it. For those who don't know, we did an Extra Life charity live stream where we streamed games for 24 hours starting last Saturday. It was a good time. I think most of us were there. Joe, unfortunately, you were kind of busy with other stuff, work related, but
yeah,
weren't able to make it. I'm sure you watched the whole thing though. So anybody have any highlights they want to share?
Hanson shaving his head is always a good time. He had his girlfriend.
You watch him every time he gets a haircut. You go over and watch that happen.
It's a great thing. I'm trying to think from my segment. I think the highlight from my segment, that because we split it up differently this year, Among Us section was a lot of fun. Not a ton of chat interaction on that one, just because like we couldn't cheat, but it just felt like everyone had kind of gotten in the groove of the stream, and it was just kind of fun. Like that game's just fun, and I think it was a fun stream game, obviously with its popularity on Twitch. So I guess that's probably my highlight. I don't know, Ben, what about you?
Good question. I had a lot of fun. Like the early morning hours are always crazy, and you get slap happy. And it was a weird thing where this year, I don't know if it was just because I was at home or whatever, but I felt less tired. I don't know why that would be. Maybe there was just less chaos, or I was able to peel off and take a nap here and there, but
that might have something to do with it.
Yeah, being able to actually sleep. Yeah,
I don't know. I can't put my finger on what the difference is. Honestly,
it's a mystery. Who knows?
Yeah. But I really liked. We did Tabletop Simulator at one point where you played this deck-based game that was kind of like D&D. It's basically just a giant improv session with Surreal and Hanson and Leo over at MinMax, and those guys are obviously fun, and we had a good time. So I recommend checking that out. I also had fun reading this Indiana Jones script, which was basically just Hanson reading for 45 minutes, but it was fun to do. I don't know if it's fun to watch, but actually let me know if you guys enjoyed that stuff, because maybe we could do more content like that in the future. But we ended up raising over 50,000 for kids at Gillette Children's Specialty Healthcare. So thanks for your support. If you donated, we really appreciate it. They really, really appreciate it. And it was a good time. So
definitely
check it out. GameInformer.com/extra life if you want to see what the fuss was about there.
Did anyone have to eat anything gross this year? Was that part of it?
That's a good highlight. Yeah, one of the things we didn't have like hot peppers or bugs or anything, but one thing people could do is like donate money and then pick our order from a pizza place. Somebody donated $500 that I would call in. I called into Sarpino's, which is a local pizza place near me, and ordered an olive pizza, which was just bread and olives with no cheese or sauce.
Awful.
Pretty good.
Did you have any more of it after that one piece?
I ended up, yeah, I did actually. So pick off a few of the olives. They actually, like, I don't know if it's cheated. I ate one slice as is, but then like the other thing, they also, I don't know if they did this because they're like, this guy's a maniac. He's going to want dipping sauce. So they had this old dipping sauce that I dipped another piece into. It was super salty.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
It was, I was drinking water for like 10 hours after that just to try to like recover. Cool. So yeah, you can check that out.
Yeah. Leo had to do like he eventually found somewhere with anchovies, right? I think I watched that part.
He found, was it anchovies? He found somewhere, yeah. He had to order one with anchovies and pineapple on his pizza, which is also not great.
But no clamdy canes this year.
No
clamdy canes.
No one went through the torture that you did last year.
It's so gross.
Oh, how many did you do, Joe?
I don't even remember. I feel like I did.
You blacked it out.
It was like 5 or 6, wasn't it?
My answer is like I did 10 of them, but I'm sure that that's an exaggeration. But it sure feels like I did 10 of them.
You would have died if you did 10 of those things.
They are so gross.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I was bummed that I couldn't do it this year, but it was sort of an every hour matters situation trying to get through Valhalla for that review. So
yeah, you're also a hero, Joe. We'll say that.
Correct.
I did my best.
Every hero counts. Great. Next email Wesley from Oregon says, first time, long time, love the show. I recently saw a statistic on GameStats.com. I'm not familiar with this website, by the way, just FYI. But he says that GameStats showed that Forza Horizon 4 has 4.6 million monthly active users as of October, which is kind of crazy to think. And according to them, again, I didn't vet this email. This isn't me. This is just a guy writing in, so it could mean anything.
It's fake
He says
news.
more active monthly users than Rainbow Six Siege or Apex Legends, which is kind of crazy.
Wow.
So he says, I don't know why that is, but anyway, the reason I'm writing in is because clearly this game has some legs. And with the end of the generation coming up, it's time to make some games of the generation lists. And I wonder if games like this or from other genres that are considered niche might be able to get some attention finally. So he's kind of asking, like, what are some of our games of the generation? And, like, do you guys want to call out any highlights?
Well, I wrote a whole article called The Game Informer's Games of the Generation, which you can read on GameInformer.com. One of the things that I liked about putting that list together, I didn't put it together myself. It was a discussion as a group, but I wrote it up. And like one of the things I liked about it is we were able to sort of break it up into some non-traditional categories. So it wasn't always just like best shooter, best RPG. It let us focus a little bit on like, hey, there are lots of games out there that have sort of an indie, like retro aesthetic. What are those? So I think, things on that list were like Axiom Verge and Cuphead and things like that, so, but alongside those games that sort of maybe wouldn't have gotten attention on a games of the generation list otherwise, I think it was still pretty heavily weighted towards, the big ones that sort of dominated the conversation, right? Like Breath of the Wild, Witcher, Last of Us, God of War, Spider-Man, that kind of stuff.
For sure.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if Spider-Man made it. Did Spider-Man make it?
I think it made it. I think it was on there somewhere. I don't know where it was on.
It should have. If not, that was an oversight on our part. But
Well, do you guys have any personal highlights you want to call out? Stuff you're like, man, when I look back over the last, 5+ years, this is what stands out for me. Like for me personally, like Breath of the Wild stands out as a game that I still really, really love. And just, I think about that game a lot and how much I liked it. And I wonder, like, am I going to like the sequel as much, or was that a weird one-off like thing that I got obsessed with?
For sure. I would say, I think one of the more underrated gems of this generation is Titanfall 2. There are very few first-person shooters or multiplayer experiences that match the water cooler excitement that is dropping one of those bad boys in and running show. And combine that with the amazing wall running, that game just got sent out to die, and it makes me sad. So that, I think Ori and the Will of the Wisps is one of the best Metroid games ever. And I think that's something that I'm going to be I'm looking forward to talking more about when we get to our Game of the Year discussions. It took everything that made that first game and I ramped it up and streamlined it in a way that I think that game is just about as close to perfect in that genre as you can get. And then obviously like the big ones, like, Last of Us, we've talked about, like God of War. But I would say those two, I think, are two of my favorites that don't get brought up as much as they should.
I've fallen off of it for sure, but I would say like Overwatch really was a game that dominated my time for a really long time. Had a fantastic time with it, and love the characters, love moment to moment gameplay. I love the kind of feeling of like that it was nice because there was always like a skill cap that seemed within reach, even though, let's admit it, I never got close to it. But it was always really fun. Yeah.
That dominated the summer after I got out of college. Like when I was looking for jobs, I was just trying to hit platinum and ranked. But
yeah,
that game is so good.
There's one that I'm curious about in terms of how, with a little distance, how I might see it differently, and that's Ghost of Tsushima. Because that one, I feel like I'm still burning pretty hot on, right? Like it just came out this summer, so I would like I'm still in really close proximity to it, but I had such a good time with that game. I want to know in a year or two when I look back on this generation, is that still going to be so hot in my mind? But Right
That's-
now, I think it definitely is.
That's a good one to think about too, because we just talked about Assassins, and Assassins is out now, and it got a lot of comparisons of like, hey, this is kind of like that Japanese Assassins game you wanted. So, is it fair to compare them yet, or do you think like one is better than the other at this point? Do you know
I
where they
just think
land
there's
on your
such different
personal list?
there's such different things. I think Valhalla is probably a little higher for me on my personal list, but I think they apply the same like really smart open world design of not bloating the world with a bunch of stuff to do for no reason. There are always stuff like if in Ghost of Tsushima you like follow one of those little sparrows around, sometimes it leads you to a dumb headband you don't care about, but most of the time it's going to take you to an activity that's worth doing, that gives you a reward that feeds into the gameplay that you enjoy. And Valhalla does the same thing. So I think they're both really, really smart in that regard.
Yeah, those are some good thoughts. I like all those games. Next email is he says, "Hey GI crew, this is Evan sending you greetings and love from Georgia." Hey Evan.
Thank you.
Thank you. We
Thanks,
feel
Evan.
it, buddy. We
Yeah.
feel it for sure. I love the work you guys are doing. Keep it up. My question is, with the current climate and with us working from home, we're able to play games on our breaks and lunches to relax. What are your guys' best lunch games? What games you can play during lunch for like 30 to 40 minutes without having to worry about finding a save point or a checkpoint? My girlfriend and I did that with Crash Bandicoot. I assume he means playing it over lunch. Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, and right now my lunch game is Gone Home. I would love to hear more suggestions and some of your favorites. Thank you. Game on and stay safe.
I've been doing Genshin Impact, which is one that I played a fair bit. Like I played more traditionally when it first came out, right? Like I spent a couple weekends really digging into that one and getting, making some progress. But these days, more than anything, I sort of pop in there for, like 15, 20 minutes, do the daily sort of quests and then pop out. But the funny thing for me is like a lot of people have familiarity with that with MMOs, with games like Destiny, like that sort of, daily engagement model isn't anything new, but it is new for me. There hasn't really been a game that's driven me to do that. And I've been busy the last week with Valhalla, but before then I really was just like putting a little bit of time into Genshin Impact every day, and that's the right amount. I don't want to sit and play it for hours anymore, but I still enjoy a little bit of time with it.
Cool. I know for me, I'm had a ton of time just because this next gen cycle has been crazy, but I feel like Pokemon Go and Warzone are the two that especially like if I've been sitting at my computer for hours and I need to just get up and walk around the apartment or like go outside. What a concept, right? Like hitting those dailies on that still feels good. I still like collecting Pokemon, even though it's not as it's not a daily basis thing, but it's a nice thing to get me up and moving after editing for a while. And then Warzone, just jump in for a match, play a game, get angry, and then go back to work.
Do you guys do this, by the way? Do you like take lunch breaks to play video games?
No, I do it. I play in the morning. Man.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah, Cork, you do that too.
Yeah, that's typically when I play. Like a lot is before work for sure, because I wake up really early.
For sure.
Yeah, Cork and I have teamed up. We've done early morning Path of Exile sessions before.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah,
that seems weird to me. Like I'll wake up and play games when I wake up on Saturday morning, but I'm not working. But it just feels weird to me to wake up and like, now's my leisure time, and then I'm going to work later. But
I can't. I have to get up like this, like at the last second that I can possibly get up. So good on. I'm jealous of you guys. Good on you.
You must have good discipline for going to bed early. Is all I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's true too.
Esteban from Chile, right then. Teach me how it's done someday, Cork.
The concept of sleep seems like we need to do a refresher. After this podcast
what is that? Yeah,
I don't understand how it works. Esteban from Chile writes in. He says, "Hey, GI crew. In a lot of RPGs, we see NPC guards in towns and cities. Do you think these guards should be weaker or stronger than the player? If they're weak, I love this question, by the way.
Yeah,
if they're weaker, then the player can do whatever they want without question or consequence. And if they're stronger, then why aren't they the ones saving the world?"
I don't have a good answer, but I like this question a lot.
Took an arrow out of me.
I think it depends a lot on. I think it depends a lot on who the actual hero is, right? Like if you're playing some dumb, like some little kid, then yeah, if you go steal some apples, the guards should be able to take you down. If you're Cloud from Final Fantasy, then absolutely not. Right? Like that.
Yeah.
Am I wrong? Because that concept, the context of that matters, right?
For sure. Yeah,
That's fair.
I was thinking like towards the beginning of the game, it would make sense that they're stronger, and then as you progress, they de-level or they get lower level, like the rest of the world, depending on the game you're playing.
I remember it was in Morrowind. Like there was a late game city where the guards in there just had this awesome glass armor that was super, super awesome, super tough. And there was some kind of like, I remember playing that game and there's some kind of hack where you can lure a guard into a corner and it's an area where he can't quite hit you if you're standing in this right spot, but you can slowly whack away at him for like 10 minutes and then finally kill him. And then take his armor, and then you're awesome because you have the awesome armor. And I kind of thought about that as like, well, maybe it's not that they're that much better, as maybe their just equipment is way better.
Oh,
You think that by the time you loot that armor, it should be all broken though, right?
That's true. Maybe you're just stabbing them in the cheek over and over again.
Yeah, I guess that's on him at that point.
Like continually walking into it.
There's also the bit of like RPG leveling weirdness where, because the game has to like scale with your power and make sense like that. It's like, okay, this mouse that I'm fighting at level 50 could just absolutely destroy the Dark Knight that I fought at level 25.
Oh, like the first boss or whatever you fought?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, okay, this first boss isn't that intimidating because like just a normal mouse could destroy him from later in the game. I think you have to be willing to suspend some disbelief in terms of the abstraction of leveling and power, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But it's a good question.
It is a good question. It is a very good question to be like, hey, why aren't these guys helping out save the world? Why is it just me all the time? All right, next email says, hello, how's it going? Oh, pretty good, thanks.
Pretty good.
Hope all is well. And it is. I have some cool information that might interest you. Your podcast, The Game Informer Show, has good performance in some rankings. Position number 1 in category video games in Ghana. We're like number 1 in Ghana, guys, according to this email.
That's awesome.
Position number 1 in video games in Tajikistan. What? This is crazy.
Did you vet this one either?
Position number 1 in video games in Tunisia. How do you say that?
Are they trying to sell us anything here?
Hey, if you want more information, the data is provided by podstatus.com. So
okay,
follow up with them. But hey,
check that out.
We're number 1, guys. We did it. Number 1 in Ghana.
You did say it earlier that we are the number 1 video game podcast.
Can't take it back now.
Yeah, just didn't see the asterisk on there. That's cool though.
Yeah,
shout
congrats,
out to all
everyone.
our listeners. Yeah,
our hard work is paying off.
Yeah.
All right, Matt from Philly writes in. He says, "Hey, charity crew. I think this came in over the weekend, which is cool. Great job on the charity stream, which we talked about earlier with the folks formerly known as GI, the Minimax folks. It's weird that he didn't include their name there, but if you like my game, please rank Martin Walker on your character ranking list." He says he had to look up the name, which I thought was funny. You guys know who Martin Walker is?
No. Off the top of my head, no.
He's the character, one of the characters, I don't know which one, from Spec Ops The Line. Anyway, he has a game for us to play, so we can consider whether or not we want to rank Martin Walker later. He says, these are characters from video games, and we are going to guess how old they are, like their age.
Like in-game or like...
Well, lore-wise, yeah. So they're all fictional.
Well,
Alex, I don't know if you know about this.
No. Video games are 100% real all the time, right?
His first character is kind of a spoiler, so I'm going to skip that one. But let's go with Ezio from the Assassin's Creed franchise. How old was he at the end of Assassin's Creed Revelations?
78.
Jeff, you're not going to believe me, but that was the exact number that I had in my head.
Smart guys.
Yeah. I'm going to say he's 55.
Two good guesses. I don't know if we should do Price is Right rules or not. The answer is 65. So you guys were both completely wrong.
Yep.
How old is Link in Breath of the Wild?
Do they say like 19?
I don't know where he got this information. He could be making it up for all I know.
Dude, you gotta check these things out before people say.
Look, you know what? Who's got time for vetting this stuff?
Yeah.
Because he was like frozen for a long time, right?
Right. So keep that into account.
Oh, I see.
So
He's
I
like
don't know.
1,030 years.
Let's say 1,019 years.
Ooh.
1,021 years. See if I can beat
Was
him
he?
there.
I think he was only like
100.
cryogenically frozen for like 100 years.
No, that's
so-
where you're wrong, though.
Okay. Well, this guy needs to add a 0 because according to him, it's 117 years. That's how
Yeah.
old
okay.
Link is.
All
I was
right.
So
off
apparently
by a
he was
little
what 17 when he got frozen. Like that's interesting.
Sounds about right.
Interesting.
How old is the survivor in Fallout 4 if you factor in the amount of time he was cryogenically frozen? And you can play along at home.
85.
Just shout the number.
Think of
This-
the largest number you know. That's
This game is tough because it's not just about how old the characters
Mhm.
are. It's like it's really how long was the ridiculous narrative distance that kept them alive for an inhuman amount of time.
Sure.
yeah.
I'm saying 85. That's my guess.
Did you all guess? The answer is 210 years old.
Mm,
There it is.
All right, here you go. Maybe you'll like these more better, Joe. How old is Bayonetta, or how old will she be on December 19th, 2020, which is apparently her birthday?
Boy, I have no idea. Let's say she looks like she's probably like 30. Oh wait, except she's some ancient witch too. I don't know.
that's right.
The story is not a highlight of Bayonetta.
Yeah.
Anybody want to guess?
I don't know.
3,084.
Very close. 609.
Dang it. Uh,
All right, last one. According to the Street Fighter instruction booklet, how old is Ryu? Because you know they would have their like birthdays in there.
Blood type.
Yeah.
yeah.
20.
24.
Well, maybe he was when it came out, but they have his birth. So if you factor in like how old would he be today?
I don't want to do that, though.
Yeah, no, I don't like this.
So now he's like, what, 51?
Very close. He's 56,
Oh,
Hmm.
well, that wasn't that
which
cool.
isn't that bad. Like you can still be pretty fit when you're 56 and be a
Yeah.
pretty tough guy.
Life is worth living.
There you go. All right, what do you guys think? Do you like this game? Do you want to rank this Martin Walker character?
Well, don't we have to rank characters multiple ones at once?
Well, I mean, if somebody wanted to send in a list of one character, we could rank it. We actually have done that before, I think.
Oh, okay.
They're
I
just
don't wanna-
limited to 3. They can't do more than 3.
Maybe put that character on the back burner for someone who has some recollection of who that character is.
So you're saying you didn't like the game enough to rank this character?
Yeah, I wasn't beaming from the game after.
I don't
Yeah, I
remember
think
what Spec Ops guy he was, because I remember guys doing stuff, but was he the good? Was he the bad guy or the worst guy?
There was
I
a
guess
line in that game. I don't know.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
side of the line was he on? Sorry, Matt. I don't think we're gonna rank him today. You're gonna have to make a better game for us to play, unfortunately.
Or find smarter hosts. Either
Yeah,
one.
I think it's more
fine.
that one. Yeah.
Yeah, good luck.
We're the
That
number one
one.
podcast in 3 countries.
Yeah, come on. Did you hear about this? Number 1 in Ghana, man. All right. Do you guys want to do some actual ranking? I think we can do one.
Alright.
I have a list pulled up here. It's time for Game Informer's ultimate character ranking, meaningless character rankings, whatever you want to call it.
So many characters, find out where they go on Game Informer's arbitrary ranking show. It's science.
This is where you, the lovely listener, send us a list of 3 of your favorite characters or, 3 random characters. We don't care. We're not judging. And while we are judging, actually, because we put them on a list and we rank them, we're currently have a list of almost 40 characters on our list, starting with BB from Death Stranding, who is currently ranked at number 0. You'll have to listen to last week's episode on that one. All the way to 39, Ashley Graham, who is currently the worst character in video games.
I still think that's ridiculous, but
I still stand by that. Name a worst character, Cork.
Funky Kong.
Funky
Tom Johnson, Gex the Gecko, Bubsy the Bobcat, Corvo
Booger
Atana,
Man.
You're
Earthworm
just
Jim.
reading our list.
Yeah, Claptrap. That's where
Well,
it
you
stops.
might have
I
to
like
leave it
Deacon
there.
St. John. He's good.
Anyway, if you have characters you want us to rank, send in podcast@gameinformer.com, such as our lovely listener here, Nicholas, who wrote in a list, and he says, 2 or 3 months ago, I wrote in to mention 3 characters that y'all should add to your character ranking list. Since then, y'all have discussed the couple of these characters, and I just wanted to write in again with a new updated list. So we have not gotten to all our lists that you sent in. I apologize for that, but don't let that phase you. Feel free to keep writing in. Hopefully, we'll get to them eventually.
Yeah.
I mean, we almost have all the characters on the list already. So number 1 on Nicholas's list is Clementine. He says this from the Walking Dead series, Telltale's The Walking Dead. He says behind Ellie, sorry. He says behind Ellie, Clementine is my second favorite character in video games.
Wow.
And I should mention that I am 26. I don't know why that's relevant. My earliest days playing games date back to the PS1, and I haven't played anything before that generation. All right. To this day, no game has made me more on edge and on my seat emotionally than when I first played the first season of Telltale's The Walking Dead. Throughout Walking Dead's run, I loved watching Clem grow as a character. So that's a good point. Most of my memories of Clementine are from that first season. I did play the second season, and I don't feel like she stood out as much as she did in the first. Has anybody completed the whole Walking Dead series?
Kim did. Not here, though.
She's out in the field. I don't know if we
played the first
contact her.
2.
Yeah, I feel like we got
That's
this,
enough.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys like Clementine?
Yeah, she's fine.
She's got a good name.
Emotional heart of the series.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that Clementine is a good number 10. Bump Laura Croft down one.
Wow.
Because I definitely don't think she beats out Gladys and Solid Snake there at 8 and 9. But I do think that as a character, Clementine is more interesting and better than Laura Croft, Master Chief, Ganon. I don't think it's like head and shoulders above, but I think she's in that league. That makes sense to me.
The one thing I like about Clementine is you don't see a lot of games with young kids where the kid is really fleshed out and like a real character. Like, can you name another game with a young kid that's like the kid is an interesting character and not just some like foil or problem for the hero to solve?
Ellie, but we already have her.
Yeah, I mean, she's a little bit older than Clem.
Yeah.
And a little bit more capable.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a good comparison.
Number 10 she is. I like that.
Number 10. So you guys want to put her, I think definitely below Gladys, like you're saying. Above Laura, I can see that. I can see that.
As with Lara Croft too, though, you have like several different iterations of the character. Like they can pretend all up and like that it's the same continuity or whatever, but like the ones from the most recent games, she is an actual character as opposed to something that you had to like walk up to the edge of a cliff and jump and stand in the right position and stuff.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I think we got to factor all that in there too.
I think so. Number 10.
Yeah. Good job.
All right. I got it correct.
Yep.
You did it,
got it
Joe.
right.
All right. Let's see if you can do this one too.
Okay.
Next one on Nicholas's list. Sam Fisher, behind the Uncharted series. Splinter Cell. Sorry, guys. Splinter Cell is my second favorite video game series, alongside Madden. Playing the first Splinter Cell when I realized that I really liked playing video games. As it pertains to Sam Fisher, before Conviction was released in 2010, I thoroughly enjoyed Sam as a character and learning about his profession and his background. It wasn't until Conviction, which ranks in my top 5 favorite games of all time, that Sam's story became more personal and I liked him even more. So I don't know. What do you guys think? He compares him to Jason Bourne. We don't have Sam Fisher on here yet, huh?
No. We
do have Solid Snake at number 8, which seems like a good comparison point.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
I'm looking at like under Ganon, maybe above Big Daddy.
Well, I'm just saying like
too high.
Too high.
Yeah.
Not a Sam Fisher fan?
I guess it's more like Sam Fisher to me, for I'm not saying anything bad about him necessarily, but he definitely is riding on Solid Snake's coattails, right?
It's kind of like Walmart brand Solid Snake.
Yeah, like you've got the badass spy infiltrator on the Sony platform, so Sam Fisher is the Xbox analog there, right?
Yeah, and especially early on, there wasn't a lot to his personality. He had an awesome voice, obviously, like Michael Ironside. He had that cool look with the goggles, which is very iconic. But outside of that,
I mean, like
I don't feel like there's a whole lot there.
I'm putting him like, and I know that over the course of the series that like his story evolved, but it's also in a way that like I don't know. I guess my suggestion for Sam Fisher is down at number 23, below Mega Man, but above Guybrush Threepwood, Fox McCloud, Toad Jackson.
Making a mistake by caring for a second about this list, because all the things you used as a weapon against him being higher, like he's not really a character or whatever. Big Daddy is literally just a costume.
Yeah, but
there's no character at all.
It's so cool though.
We're going by
coolness is a factor. That's a thing.
Coolness and look are definitely a factor. Also, I think just like how you feel about the character in that game. Like Big Daddies are very imposing. They're very capable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you though, Joe. I don't know why I keep calling you. I keep confusing you two. I don't know why. Court, I'm with you. I think we should maybe re-rank Big Daddy personally, but
we'll have to see it without someone nominating it.
I mean, that's how science works, right?
While you're at it, please ask us to re-rank Auron from Final Fantasy X.
I don't know, man.
Oh,
he looks pretty good where he is. I'm going to say like Alex Vance is a really cool character. I don't think Sam is as good as her, so definitely below that.
And maybe Scorpion. How do you put Sam Fisher above Scorpion?
Yeah, Chuck Green maybe somewhere in there.
I don't know that, because then again, this is my thing, but like then he's still above Auron from Final Fantasy, which is ridiculous.
That guy, he only has one arm, Joe.
He has two arms.
Yeah, but practically.
He has both arms. He just sort of has one in that like Ronin sling sometimes.
I mean, if you own two cars, but one is always in the garage and you never use it, do you really have two cars?
He uses it. He swings a sword with it sometimes.
How many arms does Samus have?
Two.
Oh. One's a
That's
blaster,
a good point, because one of them is a gun. Same argument as Mega Man, I guess. I don't know, where is this going?
I don't know. You started this.
You're the one who made the arms a factor for some reason.
Yeah. Very strange.
I can sleep at night knowing he's below Auron. I think that's a little low, but
okay. So wait,
he's definitely better than Solaire of Astora from Dark Souls, right?
Okay, how do you guys feel about that? Number 22, better than the Dark Souls guy.
I know Dan Tack somewhere just had like a twitch, but he'll be fine.
Oh, my list might be wrong. I think my numbers might be weird.
What did you change them somehow?
It's because we haven't added the new characters yet.
Oh, I see. Okay,
that's the trap I fall into almost every week, but not this time.
Yeah. Anyway, let's do that. That sounds good.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Sam Fisher comes in at number 22, right below Auron and right above Solaire of Astora. Is that really that guy's name?
Sure.
Okay. Final character on Nicholas's list. You guys ready for this?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I'm curious to see where this goes. Arthur Morgan.
Oh.
I've listened to y'all debate James Marston versus Arthur Morgan for a long time, and if you ask me, Arthur is without a doubt better, and that's all I will say.
I agree. I think if with John as high as he is, I think Arthur's a better character. I just think he lives out, depending on how you play him, obviously, but I think he lives out that idea of redemption better than John did. And John had a great story, don't get me wrong, but I think Arthur took that to another level.
I'd put Arthur at number 1.
Yes.
Oh,
really?
Yeah, I'm absolutely 100% on board with Joe.
I think Arthur is a more interesting character than both Ellie and Kratos, who are currently 1 and 2.
Yep.
Wow.
Well, I'll give you that for Kratos. I think you might be right there.
It's interesting because I feel like Arthur and Kratos, like, they're both on that theme of redemption, and Ellie is on the downward spiral of that.
That is interesting because it feels like they start in opposite places and then their X's cross, if you know what I mean.
There's an interesting thing about Ellie too. I think that like especially if you've played Last of Us 2, she gets really hard to root for in a way that I think Arthur never does. Like
I don't know if it's necessarily like that. My problem. It's not even really a problem. Like whatever issues I may have with Ellie are less about wanting to root for her or not. It just feels as though she's easily manipulated in a way that isn't fun to participate in. I understand that like I'm controlling where she walks and that kind of a thing, but it seems like she's played like a fool in The Last of Us Part 2 in ways that I don't find particularly
Well, she
interesting.
plays
sure.
herself for a fool because she's the one doing it all, right? She's the one obsessed with all this stuff.
To a point, but without getting into spoilers, then something happens 2/3 of the way through that just ring false in my opinion.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know that we need to make like it's not necessarily a critique of The Last of Us Part 2 either, but
She's in that.
Yeah, no, I know, but I mean, like, it's not all about just the quality of the game too. I think,
Oh yeah.
you know, I think just in terms of like, I don't know that there has been for all of the games out there that put you in a character that like the shoes of a blank slate character, right? That you're just like, hey, project yourself on them. I think one of the great things about Arthur Morgan is that I think Red Dead 2 invites you to role play that character in a way that so few games pull off, right? Like they give you enough threads to grab for who Arthur Morgan is while still leaving so much up to you to shape in your own personal narrative of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where like it doesn't
100%.
you don't feel quite as like railroaded in the way that you do as Ellie, but he still comes off as like a loyal, principled character, no matter what he does that you want to spend time with.
Yeah. And we talked about it, I think 2 weeks ago, but he bucks convention for a stereotypical
His horse bucks.
yeah. But he bucks convention in video game protagonists and characters in the Wild West, and that he shows vulnerability towards the end, which I think is really hard to pull off well and to feel good about, especially in, you know, a tough environment where everyone's looting and shooting, you know what I mean? And to feel genuine, but like there's scenes towards the end that are just heartbreaking in a way that only works because of what you talked about, Joe. And very few games have ever been able to do that to that level.
Yeah, I think the more I think about it, I think that's part of what sets him apart. Is like it's not even necessarily characters in terms of a purely narrative, plot-driven sense, but as in terms of also just like video game characters, the ones that weave in that element of like participation and interaction in addition to the narrative. I think Arthur Morgan's just really hard to beat.
Yeah.
That's my argument.
It's remarkable when you think about it too, because before Red Dead 2 came out, it was kind of like, you want me to care about another character who's not John Marston in a Red Dead game?
Yeah.
Good luck.
For real.
And I'm 1000% on board. Like, I think it's not like it's a zero-sum game. You know, I love John Marston. I think he's a great character as well. And I think Red Dead 2 does that character great service as well, because you get to see where he came from and kind of what was motivating him and all that. But I think Arthur Morgan is such a striking personality and so interesting. And to your point about being able to role play him, that it does give you it rewards you for playing it like either end of the spectrum in ways, or if you kind of somewhere in the middle, which I think a lot of people fell into because they, after a while, you were just like gauging what they think the character would do in that certain circumstances that were presented to him, which I think is a sign of like success.
Yeah. And also, I mean, nothing against I sometimes when you're arguing something like this, you have to put down the characters that they're up against. And like I think Ellie and Kratos and John Marston are also just like are fantastic. So I don't want to like
definitely,
you know, be negative there, but I do think that Arthur Morgan tops them in terms of video game heroes.
It's tough because like I'm not sure. I still maybe personally like Ellie more. I think Ellie's more likable in the first Last of Us than she is the second Last of Us. But I think the second Last of Us makes her a more complex and interesting character, if that makes sense.
yeah. I'm
But
with
then
you,
in terms of Arthur Morgan, like it was kind of fun, like for such a tough, gruff guy who's like such a classic cowboy. There's shades of like just seeing him have joy and experience wonder. Like remember there's those scenes where he meets the tinkerer guy who's building all kinds of mechanical stuff. and like Arthur's like, oh my god, and like he's blown away and like
So good.
impressed
Yeah.
by this
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like that was kind of fun to see that sort of like, I don't know, I almost want to say boyish wonder, but I don't know if that's quite right. But I don't know.
Definitely. Yeah.
All that said, are you guys all leaning towards number one?
I
am.
say 2, but I'm not opposed to 1. I understand the argument.
I kind of lean towards 2 too, but I feel like the arguments are stronger for number 1. So
Wow.
Arthur Morgan is number 1.
I did not anticipate that Ellie sliding for a while. That's unreal. Breaking news here. Also, Liana is not going to be happy, but that's okay.
Oh, she was a Marston fan.
Remember that was the whole on her first episode. She came in flaming hot, saying that John Marsden was like infinitely better than Arthur Morgan. I was like, "You're crazy! What?"
Well,
Yeah.
she can relitigate the next time that someone brings that up.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's see if somebody wants to re-rank it. Good luck. All right. We've reached the next segment of our show, which I like to call "Someone Please Console Me." Can someone please console me, please? I don't have a console yet. I don't have a PS5, but I would like one. So I need it. It's new generation, new consoles. Is this working? Oh, we're talking about the new consoles are here, everybody.
I was ready to
The
get
new
wrecked.
consoles are here. Well, that's where I'm going with. It's basically Get Wrecked, but I want to do special console edition. So yeah, let's Get Wrecked console edition. Should that be the title? It's like that scene. Remember The Jerk? When the jerk freaks out, the new phone books are here. He's like, the new phone books are here. The new phone books are here. And he's all excited. That's how we should be. We should be excited for new consoles. And we got a bunch of content on our website right now dedicated to the new Xbox and the new PlayStation. So is there anything you guys want to highlight up there other than, I mean, the reviews are obviously great. You should highlight those, but anything else you guys want to point out, like things people should check out on the site right now?
I want to point out something that Blake Hester wrote about pointing out basically the 5 launch games that are available on Xbox Series X that you should check out. I won't go through the whole list of all of them, but in a time where you can't really point to, hey, these are all exclusive games, I think he does a good job singling out why these games, most of which are cross-generation, are still things that like, this is why you should be checking them out on next gen specifically. So
Definitely.
that's me.
I would say, keeping it in the video realm as I tend to do, the Alex Van Aken, the other Alex video editor, came in and we kind of, I mean, it was tis the season, but we threw him the PlayStation 5 video review, and I think that video is a good showcase as to why we wanted to hire him, because he uses his After Effects ability, his on-camera personality, and his shooting skills to an amazing effect. And I think he brings that video up to another level on top of Miller's amazing writing for that. So if I'm sure a lot of you have, but go check it out because Alex did such a good job with that video.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good
Cork, anything you want to highlight?
Yeah, I wanted to highlight Alex Van Aken's video, so thanks a lot for that. That was a spectacular play on your part.
We talked about it earlier.
Did Alex Stadnick do any good video stuff? Maybe we
Probably
can do
not.
I'd really like to highlight Alex Van Aken's video.
That
No,
shows
there is
how
a good video.
Yeah.
You did a good video too, Alex
Oh.
Stadnick.
Thank you.
So check out both video reviews for both systems. Also, Brian Shea wrote something. It's like, is the PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X right for you? So you can kind of read that, and he weighs the pros and cons on both new systems. And I think, not trying to be biased on either one, but I think there's good reasons to have either one, depending on what you're most invested in and what you like as a gamer. So check that out, and maybe he can kind of help steer you down the right path. Something also kind of adjacent is Leanna Rupert wrote something called Next Gen Games I Can't Wait to Play. And that's kind of more focused on games that are coming up. It's stuff that we know is coming down the pipe, and stuff that you can get excited about that isn't quite here yet, but we know is coming, and might steer you towards wanting to buy one of the new consoles as well. So go check all that stuff out.
I want to throw in a recommendation too. This is an opinion piece from a while ago that fellow podcast guest Jeff Cork here wrote. If you're someone who right now just like can't get one of these new consoles, whether that's because the pre-orders are tight or because money is tight or whatever. Jeff wrote a great piece about how that's okay, because this generation is sort of unprecedented in the amount of cross-generation games and all of that stuff, that it just doesn't there are definitely reasons to upgrade. I think a lot of us here are doing so, but if you're not, you also won't feel left out in the cold. And I think Jeff's article does a good job articulating that also.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to the conclusion of the show, guys. Thanks for being on. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And thanks for watching or listening to this episode of the show. We really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe, or subscribe to the magazine. As I always say, we really appreciate it. Leave a review and come back next week where we'll have another episode waiting for you. Till then, game on.